Beccas By The Bay Soapery, your South Texas soaper, Becca. Today we're working with clays. So this was something someone was talking about in one of the soaping groups, and they weren't quite sure how to work with them. And we are just getting back to basics. I'm out of pretty much unscented plain soaps, and so I'm remaking some things today, and I just wanted to share a little bit about working with clays and soap making. I like to use a cold process method, and I also like to use goat milk soap. So I already have all of my oils and butters melted down to room temperature with my, I like to put kaolin clay in all of our soaps. So there's kaolin clay. You can use anywhere from a teaspoon to a tablespoon per pound of clay in your soap batter. So this is actually like 50 ounces. It's kind of a fairly large batch. Kaolin clay is a beautiful white clay. It's in my container here. I have a big container of it, but it's a beautiful fine white clay. It helps add slip to your soap. It's really good at holding scents in, like especially essential oils. If you're going to use essential oils in your soap, it is super essential to pick some type of clay to help anchor and hold the scent. Pick any clay. They come in white kaolin. This is a French green sea clay. Now some people like to mix it with their water. I actually like to make my batter up, and I mix it with my melted oil. So here's the sea clay. It's going to need a little bit more mixing up. You can get some of these little whisks. They're pretty helpful unless you have one of those little blender sticks, and I keep forgetting to get a new battery for mine, but this will work just fine. And you just want to make sure that there's no clumps of the clay when you mix it with your water or your oils. So that's number one. And then also I've got, I only have a couple of different clays. There's a full, just Google beauty benefits of clays, and there's tons of information out there. So I'm going to show you, and that's what the picture was at the beginning, free soap with, this is our goat milk soap with just the rose clay. It's very sunny out. So what I did and I'm sure the color will deepen a little bit more. So I put them in our molds, a cold process, and then molds from Walmart. Valentine's, they had some really fun roses. I think they're just under 3 ounces, so it's a great beauty bar, spa bar size to work with. And so I mix up my soap batter, mostly probably 3/4 of plain white, and then I mixed up, a third of it with the clay, and then I did like a drop swirl kind of thing in the pot, and I poured it in, and then since these are individual molds, I put them in my oven. So I'll put my oven light on, no heat, and then I'll leave them there for 24 hours. Since it's an individual mold and there's plenty of air, if I need to, I'll crack the oven door open so there's no overheating or cracking, since these are done at room temperature. And what that does is it forces gel and keeps the temperatures even at 100 degrees. And so my soaps set up really quickly, and then it makes the color pop from the clay. The forcing of the gel helps the colors to pop and stand out a little bit better. Otherwise, they'll be a little bit more muted. I probably could have added a little bit more clay, but I think they came out really beautiful. It's unscented, and so that's the one we did yesterday, which was a coconut free. This is something I just like to call beach life because we live here down by the bay. It's kind of a swirl soap. It's unscented with goat milk. Again, I'm working with the French green sea clay. And you want to make sure that's really incorporated into your oils or waters so that you don't have any clumps going on. So the other thing I like to mix with it So there's no fragrance, and people really like our swirls. This is by Nurture, and I wanted to use, I don't know, sometimes you see flecks of this color in the ocean. So I thought that would be really pretty, even though this looks drab olive right now, it's going to actually be a beautiful green. So we've got all of our molds ready. Down here, so you can see I got molds everywhere today. So I'm going to see how many I make. I usually do some minis with our little hearts. We've got a couple of mermaids, some dolphins, and they really love this fish mold. So we'll be doing some fishies as well. So I like to add ice cubes and our distilled water with our lye. And then I add my, I'll take here and add my organic cane sugar, sea salt, and citric acid. Citric acid really helps with reducing soap scum. So that's what that looks like after I add it back into my lye water. Make sure there's no lumps or crystallization or anything like that going on. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So this is all pretty much room temperature. This is a little warm, but I think it's going to be okay. It's 110. This is 86. It's close enough, and I think we'll be good. So I worked at a little bit of a water discount. Took 32%, and then we've got organic coconut oil, castor oil, organic beef tallow. Rice bran oil is a great alternative to olive oil because it actually helps with bubbles. And then we've got our sunflower oil. And then we put in our goat milk powder additives. I try to keep it simple. And again, this is almost 3 pounds of soap, so I've got 2.5 teaspoons of sea clay. So about a teaspoon per pound. You could go up to a tablespoon, but I think a teaspoon is fine for me. So I'm just gonna make sure this is all blended first with my other kale and clay here. Make sure there's no lumps. We're gonna pour in our blend it to a light trace. Start to turn like a milky cohesive. It was like looking oily, and so now it's going to look a little bit more creamy. You're looking for it to coat the back of your stick blender, kind of like when you're cooking. I forget what it's called, but when you want it to coat the back of the spoon. Go a little bit longer. You don't really want to have a false trace. So starting to kind of make a line across, you know you're at a really light trace. And so you can start separating out your batter. Here's my clay. Here's my sea green, which is really, really pretty. And I do want to have make sure. I do notice that with goat milk soaps, over time they can tend to yellow. So I like to add a little bit of titanium dioxide mixed 1-to-1 ratio with some distilled water. And that really helps if your soap's going to be around a while, it'll still stay a really pretty creamy kind of white. And depending on how white you want it, you can add like a lot or a little bit of TD. Another tip is that the sunflower oil will help lipstick blend. I have not been feeling my best, and we did do an event recently, so thank you all to all the prayers that went out to me. This is just working with clays today. I figured I'd share what I'm doing since we need to make some more. And you want to go from lighter to darker whenever you're mixing. That way you have to clean off your zip stick. Still have a pretty fluid batter, and everyone has their own method, but this is kind of how my swirls developed over the past 4 years, and I'll show you what I do. So, take this out. You can see what I'm doing. I want it to go all the way to the bottom. Like a 5-point, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes in the middle. So there's that, and then as you raise up, it goes deeper into the batter. So if you raise it up, the higher you pour it from, the deeper it goes down to the bottom of your soap batter. Otherwise, it'll center again, and then I do 4 more points in between. Sometimes I'll just kind of zigzag it at the top there. And then you can pour it like that, and it'll come out a really pretty color. I do one more swirl, and I'll show you in a second. And usually I just work with the 3 colors. If I try to work with more than 3 colors, it tends to get muddy looking. So I try to keep it some kind of white or gray or black as my base, and then I do 2 other colors. This just really helps complement the sea green with the clay. So that's what I'm up to. So you just take your whatever you have, and I make a figure 8, and then I go around once in a circle. And it's going to pour out and swirl as I pour it out. So make sure there's no bubbles going on there. And then I take my molds, and I tend to pour from one corner, and I will zigzag it. I forget what they call that exactly, but it is has a method. I've had some seizures, so I don't quite remember the names of different things, so I apologize. I'm working on a reboot on just do a little pour, and you're making like waves or cosmic waves. Is that what it's called? Zigzag cosmic waves, something like that. Always make sure you're working with a clean surface to begin with, because you're gonna more than likely get soap everywhere. I'm gonna try and get this done. Good. And then I will tap down each mold and make sure you get out any air bubbles. Super important on your individual molds because you can get some air bubbles on these really detailed molds if you're not working at a thin enough trace, or what am I trying to think of? I'm just feeling still out of sorts. My brain is just working at a lot slower speed. It's helpful to somebody out there. You can try to loosen the batter a little. I know on Etsy this year they were talking about how green or chartreuse is one of my favorite colors. So I'm so excited to make sure we get orange or burnt orange or something like that. And I don't know that I did too many orange soaps last year, but orange is pretty too. But greens and blues and purples are kind of my favorite color. And we've got our fish over here. And I'm just spilling this everywhere. Valerie over in Nova Scotia, I forget what her soap channel is called. She makes some beautiful hot process soaps that look absolutely amazing, and she puts such luscious ingredients in. It's so heavenly looking. So if you haven't seen her channel and you're looking for hot process ways to make some soap, hers is a fabulous channel. She does give you a lot of her recipes that she's trying out or working with. She's just super sweet. I am not that good at hot processing, so I am kind of a cold process kind of girl, and I love to swirl, if you haven't noticed from my videos. I should have probably had this add a little bit more water, but I like the backs to look pretty too, but that doesn't always happen. All right, so we've got all of those ones filled, and I need to fill more. So everywhere. I need to pour it into this mold over here, but I'm gonna wipe. I thought I had energy today to do this, but I just am feeling really run down lately. So, so we've got this over here. Not entirely sure how many it's going to make. Just pouring it in. We're going to bang it down. Now, I know probably it's the clay's making it clump up a little bit. So if you're working with your clays, try to make sure you're compensating for the clays absorbing so much. They're going to need a little bit of extra water. I'm thinking what else I could fill for a mold that I have. Almost tomato season in the garden. We've got a jump on it from the ones that we started in September. And I started some more seedlings in our little greenhouse, hoping they get big enough to transplant soon. And all of our pak choi and lettuces are like, what? We had cold weather, we had hot weather, we're getting more hot weather. So I think they're getting ready to bolt and flower. So we'll let some of those flower, and I think it's pretty much time for lettuce season to be over. The cool weather is leaving us in Texas, even though some parts of us did get so those are like that. And what else I've got? Let's see. A couple more molds to fill. What am I gonna fill? Turn that around a little bit. I'm just afraid if I try to put it in a really detailed mold, I'm just going to have lumps and air bubbles at this point because it's not as fluid. So I think the mermaid tails are pretty good too. I got these at Hobby Lobby with my coupon, of course, and I need some seashells. Mostly mermaid stuff. People really enjoy their mermaids here. They love them. Ooh, I hope I have enough to fill it. I did not pre-measure, but sometimes I really measure out my recipes by counting how many ounces I'm making, but I just did not do that today. I just was like, I'm going to make a big batch, and it was one of those kind of days. So we're just going to go with it. I'm into the soap dust. A little bit more batter. Let me see. just smooth it out. Oops. So these are going to set up for probably about 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and then they're more movable. And I put them on either cookie trays or um, what is it called? The silicone sheets. I'll put them on there and I'll put them in the oven with the light on. That will force the gel. And remember, you're only going to put just your oven light on and no heat. And you can leave the door cracked open. If you're working with a bigger mold and you're working with clays and milks and sugars, a bigger mold, like a loaf mold, you're going to want to, you can try insulating it, but it can tend to crack from my past experience. You can put it in the fridge and chill it. That way it won't overheat. It'll bring the temperatures down because adding sugars and milks will make your soap heat up and it can like volcano or crack, especially if it's a cold process. Even if you're working at room temperature, you can have some crazy things happen. I have, and so I've warned her, and then maybe put something like a box over it to help insulate it, and just kind of check on it every hour or so to make sure it's not cracking. So hopefully those are some tips with working with clays and milks and sugars. And I hope you guys make some soap and enjoy making it and have some fun. Thanks for hanging out with me here at Beccas By The Bay, and we'll see you next time. Enjoy your weekend. Comment below and let me know if you've made some soaps with clays and how they came out. Bye.